welcome to DudeCast TV. I am your host, Norman Dexter, where I'm a dude. I'm going to talk about some shit. Welcome to another episode, and I want to lead with a comment I received from somebody. Now, it's one thing when a friend compliments you on something you've done, because, well, they're your friend. They're intimately aware of what you do, who you are, and so on. But when a random stranger reaches out to you on social media, follows you on social media, somebody who you have no business knowing for any reason other than because of content you've created, and they reach out and they say, hey, I love your content. To me, that's meaningful. Because I've never, since starting this whole thing, I've never wanted to become an influencer. Big air quotes there for those of you just listening and can't see the video. I've never wanted to be a social media influencer. I think that is hot garbage. I think that is a stupid title. I hate it. I don't want that. I am very much in the same camp as, say I blew up tomorrow and became as famous as Joe Rogan. I would not want that. And I'll tell you why. Joe gets in a lot of trouble for saying stupid shit. I say stupid shit. Joe gets more listeners than almost any other person on earth when he speaks in the podcast realm. And when you're a normal person and you're elevated to that level of fame, success, whatever you want to call it, people are listening to you and you're seen as an influencer, whether you like it or not, whether you're trying to or not. I don't like the idea of influencing people. I like to get people thinking. I like to introduce perspectives, thoughts, and ideas that may help somebody, or maybe it'll piss you off, I don't know. But the idea is that I present what I have, what I've thought, ideas I may want to share, so on and so forth. I put it out there for people to consume who are interested. If you don't like it, turn it the fuck off, dislike the video, and get out. I don't care. Or you can interact in the comments or with me on social media. I don't care. I'm small enough that I can interact with every single person. So when a random person reaches out to me and says that they love my content, it feels pretty good. Because that's what I am. I'm a content creator. I'm a creator. Even before I was doing this, bodybuilding, I'm creating something. I'm creating a body that I want to create. Instead of clay that an artist would use, I'm using my own body. So I'm constantly creating, and that's what this podcast is. It's me creating something. It's kind of an audio journal also. But for me, it's just taking concepts that I find interesting, developing them, and sharing them with the world. That's what this podcast is for me. And I inherently talk about things that are relatable. Something that's very relatable is the concept of change. Thus, the overall thesis of this video or presentation is going to be on the only constant is change. Meaning the only thing in your life that remains constant is the fact that shit's going to change for you. Period. I don't care how well prepared or planned out you are, change will happen. You don't have much say in the matter. So why not embrace it? And we'll jump into that. But to start it, let's begin with a quote. Now, I have no idea who said this. I heard it in a bodybuilding motivational video years ago, like 10 years ago. And I unearthed it recently because I wanted to remember it. But I wrote it down and I want to share it with you to start. And it goes something along the lines of, because we don't want to change until the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of change. Isn't that sad? You know, for the timid in our society, change is always, always frightening. For the comfortable in our society, change is always, always threatening. But for the confident amongst us, change means opportunity. And I think that's true. But there's more to it than that. There's more to it than some grandiose guru. Yeah, you know, change is great. It's opportunity. You'll be successful. Opportunity cost and so on in the business realm. But the idea of change and embracing it goes much further than that. Because if you're like me and you have certain expectations, I'll give you an example. Say I have expectations to see my girlfriend throughout the week. We usually see each other on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then we have a date night on Saturday. If that changes, say 2 weeks ahead of time where, oh, it's 2 weeks out. Hey, sorry, I have this thing going on. I can't stay the night, but I can still see it for a couple hours. Okay. I'm going to be a little bit jarred about that for 10, 15 minutes, but that'll be all right. But if it happens, excuse me, if it happens the day of, it happens Tuesday afternoon, she's like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't come over, I'm sick, or I got this or that or whatever. Now, it's not her fault she's sick. It's not her fault that something came up at work or whatever. But it's going to be very jarring for me, and it's probably going to make me feel like dog shit the rest of the night because I won't be able to see her, and that sucks. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to be upset with her or mad at her, but I'm going to be a little upset because I had this whole evening planned to spend with her and so on. And so that's always been something I've struggled with, trying to figure out, well, now what can I do now that my plans have fallen through? Thankfully, I've gotten better at that. And the reason I've gotten better at that is because I did a previous video on the 5 Ps, proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's not just for things like your job or certain hobbies that you want to be good at, like bodybuilding for me, but it's also being ready for the day-to-day changes in your life that may be jarring or otherwise unsavory. Because shit's going to go wrong. Sometimes they go very wrong, sometimes just a little wrong, but either way, it can be jarring. Especially for those of us that may be on the spectrum, the slightest of changes can throw off your entire day, week, month, or what have you. And it can be really fucking crazy to get through, even if it's seemingly small and unimportant to a lot of other people. What matters is that it's important to you. And so this is why becoming comfortable with change is really important. And inherently, if you're becoming comfortable with change, you're becoming comfortable with discomfort. Let me say it again. It's a tongue twister. If you are comfortable with change, you are inherently becoming comfortable with discomfort. So when things become uncomfortable, when they become awkward, when they become otherwise jarring for you, the more you do that, the better. Now, I give the example of a friend that I had a while back who worked at Target, and she worked in inventory. She worked in the back. She never interacted with people other than 1 or 2 coworkers. She loved that because she was extremely introverted. She would get panic attacks or anxiety attacks or otherwise just filled with anxiety when she would have to interact with random strangers. And so that's why she loved that job. But they became short-staffed, and she had to go do the cashier's position. And it gave her panic attacks out the asshole for at least the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that she did it. But she noticed that the more she was forced into that situation, again, I'm kind of hitting on those aspects of forced adversity and chosen adversity here, developing grit and so on. And I'm pretty sure I've given this example before, but I can't fucking remember. Can't be bothered to look back and see. Because this is all stream of consciousness, bitches. Anyway, the more she did it, the better she got, the less panic attacks, the less anxiety she had. So she became comfortable with discomfort. Now, in those positions, she didn't choose that discomfort. She didn't choose that adversity, and she just was forced into developing grit in those situations. Now, what I'm saying for you is, if you develop grit on your own, choose adversity on your own, like I've stated many times in my last few podcasts, it becomes very helpful. So the broader concept here is becoming comfortable with change as a whole, because it's going to fucking happen. All right. So now I'm going to go into 2 aspects of this: calculated risk, and then risk that you didn't even know about. What I mean is risks that you choose to undergo knowing that there's a chance things are going to go terribly wrong. And then there's risk that you didn't even know was going to happen. You weren't aware that this could be a thing. But now it's your reality. We'll get into both of those. We'll start with the one that you didn't even calculate. You had no idea it was a thing. Okay? Recently, the girlfriend and I watched a movie called Walk, Ride, Rodeo. And it's about a young woman who, at, I believe, 19 years old, was well on her way to becoming I think they're called barrel racers, but basically she's on a horse and she's supposed to circle around certain barrels at the rodeo. And she was on a fast track to nationals, and that's a whole career. It was her life. She loved riding her horse, and she loved doing that. So now many of you think that when I talk about risk, all right, and something going wrong, you would think, oh, she got bucked off the horse and she, got hurt or whatever. Well, she got hurt, but it wasn't from a horse. So the calculated risk there is that, yeah, I know I'm going to be potentially bucked up this horse and hurt. I know there's a chance I could have an injury. But what happened wasn't something she expected. She got into a car accident. Here's the kicker, at least based on the movie. I don't know about real life, because this was based on a true story. In the movie, there was no other car involved. She wasn't drinking and driving, and it was broad daylight. Basically, she lost GPS. She looked down to try and, look at the map on where she was going, and she wasn't paying attention, and she started veering into the opposing lane, and she goes, oh shit, overcorrects, flips her truck, gets thrown from the vehicle because she took her seatbelt off so that she could reach the map, gets thrown from the vehicle up against a fence post, and breaks her back. Paralyzed from the waist down. Rest of her life. So, the idea here is that you don't always get what you choose, and sometimes life chooses for you. And when life takes your legs away, in this situation, your need to learn to walk again every step is a new high, every victory, your crowning achievement. The idea being that you just hit a reset button. So in this particular situation, that girl, she never walked again, as far as I know. But she did learn to ride again. And it was a hard journey. And I gotta say, there was some tough love from her parents. They were supportive. But they also knew their daughter. And they also knew that if they were just to let her sit and sulk, she would never get better. She would be depressed and honestly probably suicidal. She wouldn't have been herself. So they pushed her. They said, I'm sick of your shit. Get to therapy. Get to your physical therapy. That's what the mom literally says. I'm sick of this shit. Kicks the wheelchair and says, get your ass in this chair. I'll see you in therapy. Tough love. That's how it's done. And so she eventually got better and better at using her wheelchair, building her upper body strength, and eventually she got the idea to ride again. And she got the idea to put a seat belt, ironically, on the saddle to hold her in place so she could ride again. And eventually she did. She learned how, and she actually made it to nationals. But here's the key. It was a long journey. It was very, very hard to do. But again, she hit the reset button when she broke her back. She had to start from scratch. She went from being on the fast track to success in this career, and now, due to the hand that she was dealt in life, she was forced to do something completely different, but also the same. Now she's a motivational speaker, goes across the country talking to people, trying to inspire and so on. Guarantee you she didn't ever think that was going to happen. And she probably thought she was never going to ride again, but she did. Now, the name of the movie is Walk, Ride, Rodeo. She says at the end she got 2 out of 3 of those. But the first one, not just yet. Maybe in the future, but not just yet. So she remains hopeful to this day. Just because you're not where you want to be doesn't mean you can't be happy with how far you have come. Period. Plain and simple. End of story on that point. Because that's what matters. No matter how many setbacks you have. Say you were in a marriage. Okay, say you're a woman, you're in a marriage, you want kids. This happened to a friend of mine. She wasn't married, but she was with this guy for 4-ish years. And she's getting close to 30. Biological clock is running out, and he was just stonewalling, not proposing. They moved in together, but they didn't buy a house. They just lived in an apartment, and she really wanted kids. So she left him. Very difficult decision because you've wasted 4 years of your 20s, which for women who want to have children, that is terrifying. To start over anew in your now second half of your 20s, trying to find someone new that you want to parent a child with? Difficult decision, but she made the right one in my opinion. Now her and I are close to 30. We're about the same age. She met her now husband. They hit it off. Things are going great. He is everything she wants and more. However, what she didn't account for, he already has 2 kids. But she loves these 2 children like they are her own, and they are going to have their own at some point. She's got time. They're going to try. At least that's what she's told me. Now, again, it's not what she expected. It's not what she wanted. But she's very happy with the end result. Very, very, very content with how far she's come. Again, the path to where you want to be is not always a linear path. Sometimes a lot of zigzags, a lot of back and forth. That shit happens. Now, the other side of this coin. So there's the shit that you have no choice in, the hand you've been dealt by the universe at large, by life. Now let's go with something you choose, calculated risk. So you take that constant of change, you take it by the balls, you control it for yourself. That way, you make change happen rather than have change happen to you. That's the difference here. And I want to use myself as an example. So I've told my story on here about going to school, working through school, and so on. All of my 20s, I've worked my ass off while going to school full time for the most part. I was in school for 7 years. I'm 29. I'm going to be 30 here in August. And all of that was in school almost all of that. Okay. So I'm just going to read straight from this because this hits the point home perfectly. If I hadn't gone to school while working 2 jobs, I wouldn't have had the work ethic, ability to perform under pressure, the connections, the builder that I have for this gym that I'm building right now, and the networking, the clientele, and the trainers that I've met over the years to succeed with this endeavor that I'm going. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently building a 7,500 square foot facility wherein I will own the building. I built it of my own design. I built the building. Construction starts September 1st, a few months from now. Earlier, if the permits go through faster. Sign the contract, put the money down, it's happening. So in a little more than a year, I will have my own brick and mortar business, and I can't fucking wait. I'll say this. Say, I don't know, I didn't work throughout all my 20s. I got my degrees and everything, and then I couldn't find a job, and then somebody just hands me the money. Okay, say my parents just handed me the money, no strings attached. Here's your money, live your dream. Or I win the lottery, whatever. There is no way in hell I would be able to make that work. No way would I be able to succeed because I don't have any of those tools that I developed along the way, along the hardships I endured along the way. There's that key word there, endured. I talked about that on my last podcast with Cam Haynes' book. You endure. You work inch by inch, you improve little by little. Even if I were able to achieve this goal of building my own gym, I wouldn't have been able to sustain it at all. Inch by inch, I endured. And that's the simple aspect of it. It's that concept that Eric Thomas tells people that goes something along the lines of, your talent can take you places your character cannot keep you. You need to work. You need to put in the groundwork, build the foundation. Then you can build upon it. Otherwise, the foundation cracks and everything falls to the ground. So, too many people are in such a rush. When I was in my early 20s, 19, 20, 21, I made these extremely cringy motivational videos where effectively I just regurgitated quotes and other bullshit I read in books and saw in videos, things I heard from other motivational speakers. I was effectively just copycatting because I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I wanted to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go speak to thousands of people in an audience and tell them how to live their life when I was 19, 20, 21 years old and knew nothing about life. If I was catapulted into that success at that age, people would have called me out. They would have called me on my bullshit because it was bullshit. No, I didn't realize at the time. I was very young, naive, and stupid. But they would have called me on my bullshit and I would have failed miserably. Back then, I probably would have loved to be a social media influencer. Nowadays, I realize the fault in that thinking. I don't like that. What I want is to genuinely connect with, relate to, and help people. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go volunteer in Africa and give out clean water to those who don't have access to it. That's not what I'm talking about. If you do that, great, good for you. That's not my thing. My thing is this, the shit I talk to you about on here, the shit I do at my work, and the things that I'll continue to do and build over time. Because why? Calculated risk. My whole life, I have been terrified of debt. Bought my house cash. Bought every car I've ever owned cash. Do everything I can to avoid debt. Develop more than just my normal income, more than just what I do at work. I have other incomes that pay my bills because I want what I do for work to go into savings, and then those savings go towards investments like this gym. So I could have just kept doing that and been fine. But here's the issue. I currently work at a space where if the owner just decides, hey, I don't like Norm, fuck him, deuce magoose, see you bye, all of a sudden now, because I was beholden to another person, if they just decide, fuck you, see you bye, I'm fucked. Now, I would have been okay because my finances would have been all right, but I wouldn't have been able to stay with my clientele. I would have had to find a new place to go, and I probably would have lost people. And that, to me, is letting them down. So me taking on this calculated risk of building this gym is a way for me to be self-sustaining in the ecosystem that I create, the environment that I cultivate for myself. I become self-sufficient. I am beholden to no one but myself. And so because I will own this thing that I am building, I can more adequately serve those I work with. I can more adeptly address you all with this podcast on a more frequent basis. Doesn't have to be just Mondays anymore if I'm not driving around as much because, by the way, there's going to be an apartment in the back of the gym that I'm going to live out of. So I can go in, record a podcast, walk next door. Hey, I'm at work. So I don't have to rush like I am this morning in making this podcast because I have to be at work at 12, and here it is 11 o'clock. So I can start making longer podcasts. I can start making more frequent podcasts. It's good for you guys if you like watching and listening. And it's good for me because I like doing them. It's this whole concept that Jocko Willink talks about called discipline equals freedom. If you force yourself into extreme discipline, you become free to do more with your life. Rather than just letting life happen to you, you get to choose where you want to go in life. Because again, the only constant is change. Things will change whether you like it or not. For me, rather than waiting for the other shoe to drop, rather than waiting for something bad to happen or something good, I don't know. Rather than just waiting and hoping things don't go wrong or hoping things go right, I'm going to make a calculated risk, take a step forward. Maybe I trip and fall, maybe I stumble, but ultimately I make that decision. And with the chosen adversity I have in that moment and the grit I've developed over years through that chosen adversity I've taken every step of the way, I am more likely to succeed. I am more likely to get there. Whereas if I didn't have any of that, if I didn't work throughout all of my 20s while I went to school, if I didn't do any of that shit, I would have way less tools in my disposal to build what I want to build. The raw materials are very helpful. The money, the connections, all these things, those are very important. The raw materials and the tools are very, very helpful. But the skill to hone those tools, to hone all of these raw materials, to take these raw materials and these tools, put them together and create something worthwhile, the skill to do that is completely different. I can look up on YouTube how to fix my toilet if it's broken, but a plumber, he's going to do it in 5 minutes, which would have taken me 5 hours. Skill matters. You only develop skill through repetition after repetition after repetition after repetition. So if you consistently repeat yourself over and over again by engaging in change, actively, proactively, seeking out change in your life, hopefully for positive reasons, then all of a sudden, shit gets pretty easy. You don't have nearly as much anxiety. You're not as panicky. You become much more confident in your decision-making abilities. Way less indecisive. And that's really important. That's very helpful. Now, I've given you my examples. Why don't you guys list your examples in the comments below, for those of you who made it this far into the video? Because, like I said in the beginning, somebody reached out to me and said they loved my content. That's awesome. Why don't you talk to me and tell me how you relate to the bullshit that I spew out every episode? Say something in the comments. I don't care what it is. Tell me to fuck off and eat shit. Tell me you liked it. I don't care. Give me ideas for what you would want to see. An idea you want to see me talk about and expound upon. Maybe I'll pick it. I don't fucking know. I don't know what you got going on in your head, but I would like to hear from you. It'd be pretty cool. And so I think I've reached a point now where I am ready to open myself up to the comments. There's been a total of maybe 5 in all of my videos, but if you want to interact with me, feel free to do so. It would be kind of cool. So that's all I got for you today. The only constant is change. That's a wrap. Thank you for listening and or watching. Happy Monday, guys, and I'll see you next time. Deuce Magoose.
Put hard times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. He's feeling good, she's feeling good, we're feeling good, yeah. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. There's nothing better than your friends, there's no problem you can't win. Someone that's always got your back, not caring about this or that. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. All about meeting new faces, the smiles on your face and you can't erase it. Partying on, it's going on, huh? Partying on to the break of dawn. Oh, it's time to put hard times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are we doing now? Oh, come